ThreatLocker Insights is going to be really powerful for us. I love the idea that it draws upon all the intelligence gathered across the ThreatLocker landscape. So we know, hey, is this an application that's been used a lot in the past? What's the risk level of it? We get that intelligence that brings us confidence in deploying for our clients.
Oh, wow. ThreatLocker Insights. This is one I'm the most excited about. Being able to see in depth what's going on at any point in time and using that data to make decisions that we need to make.
Patch management is one of the things that the industry's struggled with for years. The patch management coming from this platform is going to allow it to be done in an intelligent way, securely.
The ThreatLocker user store is going to be a game changer. Definitely need the ability to self-deploy pre-approved apps that already have built-out policies on an as-needed basis, especially for users that may not have been identified up front that they actually need that application.
Yeah, so for us, the user store is huge. When we first joined ThreatLocker, that was one of the first things we brought up was once an approval is put in for a request and a user has to wait around for a little bit, they just sit there and they wonder, what do I do next? Having that link in the approval box that says, hey, you are asking for a PDF viewer that may not be approved, but here's a list that already are. It just saves our time. It saves your guys' time. It saves everybody's time. It saves hassles, and it's already approved, already vetted, and everyone's ready to go, just like that.
The ability to have that approval for the web control, just like any other approval, is great because there's like marketing departments that need access to social media where they don't want the rest of the company to have access. You can actually allow social media just for one computer or a user or a group and still block it for everybody else. So having that granular control with that web filtering will be fantastic.
The new functionalities, I think, taken together provide a pretty unique value proposition. In cyber, I think telemetry, being able to deploy secure apps, being able to patch those apps, and then be able to get data enrichment is super critical. So now to see patch management, DNS, outbound requests, the App Store, and all the web data and telemetry and insights is going to be super crucial to be able to allow organizations to be agile and see single pane of glass.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depends on where you're dialing in today. We got two webinars today, actually. One to talk about our new web control component that we announced at Zero Trust World. Today, I'm joined by Rob Allen. Rob, welcome again.
Good morning, Danny.
It's been a while.
It has been a while, too long, one might say.
Rob's been traveling some bit. Apparently, they let him back into the United States after having to get his green card stamped in the embassy in Dublin. So
they both let me into Ireland and let me back into the US. So double win.
I don't know if they made good judgment decisions, but we'll find out soon. So we essentially here today to really demo the new web control feature. We had a lot of demand to help block sites that aren't necessarily appropriate by customers. And we started looking at how web control could be used in a normal environment. And some of the challenges we saw was most people, when they think about web control, they're thinking about DNS. They think about using DNS servers to block websites. So essentially black holing the IP address, which is all very well and good, but it's not very streamlined. I think that was the biggest challenge we saw.
It's not the greatest user experience.
And some of the challenges, if you go back to the early 2000s, DNS was actually really good at this because essentially what would happen is you go to a website, so you go to bet365.com, and it would redirect you to a different IP address, which would be the IP address of the web blocking software. And that would have a page that said something like, this site's been blocked, you can request access here. Now, it would never carry the user information through DNS, but it would give you that nice page, and at least someone could request it and somebody could respond to that request. However, something changed, security, surprisingly.
Security happened.
Security happened and everything got broken. So all websites went to HTTPS and started using HSTS, which meant even if it redirected you to a non-HTTPS version, it would just give you an error saying this site requires HTTPS based on previous experience. And that really broke web control and the nice user experience. So now the nice thing about DNS is it's agentless. So our phones are protected, our other devices that come on our LAN. The other bad problem with it is it doesn't protect you when you're at home. So if you take your work laptop home, you've got a big problem because you're now no longer protected. So you go home, you go on bad websites, you come back to the office and bad things start happening. So we looked at this and said, how can we give the user a really nice experience? And we started off by thinking about, well, how can we actually effectively block. And that part was easy because we have an agent.
We have an agent. We had all the pieces ready. We had a firewall. We can block things. So one might say it's a logical extension of everything else that we were doing.
And that part's easy, blocking. But users getting access denied pages are not something that's really effective. And when we start thinking about what do people want to block, so we started asking customers, what do you want to block? And the obvious ones came up. Adult sites. We don't want explicit content in our organization. Gambling sites was definitely another big one. But some of the more nuanced things that came up were project management software. And I can personally relate to this. Of course, we are a company that controls what our employees do. We do not like shadow IT. We do not like people buying their own products. Yet, believe it or not, we have our own problems. Of course, you can't download software in ThreatLocker unless it's been approved by the business. But we had a few problems with runaway marketing departments. They're going to censor this out, I think, when they produce it, where they go off and buy their own project management software because they think it's cool, and they don't like the project management software that the company has. And I'm all about enabling the user, but there's a process. We want to go through security processes. We want to make sure we vet the vendors. We want to make sure that it's right for the company before somebody just goes and downloads their own or uses their own web solution. So some of the categories people are actually saying were things like LLMs.
LLMs is huge.
Big problem. Companies getting their data, people using it without authorization from the business. Project management software was another one. And just, I think they were the number two categories.
This one's requested.
So it's not just about blocking bad sites, but it's also about
blocking stuff you don't want people to be going to.
Or not allowing stuff. So we went away and we said, how do we build a web control solution that enables it? And then the third complaint I think we heard from customers is misclassification of domains. And that's been a challenge that we spend a lot of time working on. And we announced Insights at Zero Trust World. And the idea of Insights is we could actually see data across the board. And I didn't realize how helpful it was going to be in this endeavor to build a good web content filtering solution. So companies saying, hey, this site is listed as adult content when it's not, or this site is listed as so for example, x.com was considered adult content, and not untrue because it does contain adult content sometimes, but also that's not the true intent of how you'd categorize it. I would think social media would be a more appropriate category. So they were the kind of problems we were dealing with. So we went away and we said, well, how do we solve these problems? So first thing we did was just like everything else, we built a web control solution that's very, very policy driven. I want to show you how this actually works. But then we started thinking about how do we solve the problems like user experience. And maybe I can share my screen here actually. And there you go. And show you what the user experience is. So this is live today, by the way. So anyone who wants to use this, as long as you're using 10.0 of the agent, recommend 10.1 or 10.02, 10.01 or 10.02. There's a couple of minor changes, but nothing major. This is completely live in ThreatLocker today. So we created this web control module, and we're getting better. I think one of the biggest feedback we have is our portal isn't pretty enough. We don't have enough charts.
We now have charts.
I'm a cyborg, so I don't really know how to ingest images. I only ingest numbers, but
they are pretty pictures.
They are. So we got a bunch of pretty pictures first, and we're extending this out through our entire dashboard, so we can see what categories people are going on. It looks like, is this your site? You're always on dating sites, Rob.
So, I put a machine in your org. Oops.
Okay. And we get nice categories and how many requests are coming in and a nice pretty chart. So for those who want more charts, definitely we have more charts. But just like everything else in ThreatLocker, we've really made this very functional. And we've created this on a policy-driven system. And the idea of a policy-driven system is just like a firewall. The policies that define what can run and can't run process in order. I believe this is now fixed, so it also supports global policies for those who have multi-tenants in their organization.
No adult content anywhere.
Yes. But I think one of the other things someone said to me, well, what happens when you miss, I want to get something out of a category, I want to make an exception, so I need my marketing person to access Instagram or Facebook, but not social media in general. And that was really important as well, that we streamline that procedure. Or Danny wants to bet on bet365.com. But nowhere else.
I make the adult content joke, but I mean it's unnecessary. Yes, Danny wants to bet. Danny likes to gambles.
Yeah, I'll go gamble. So we wanted to keep this so you could really be very, very granular in your position. So this is a policy-based system. So when you deploy ThreatLocker first, for those who don't currently use ThreatLocker, you'll get a device in here. You'll see it in here. The learning relates to application control. And you'll start logging everything in this unified audit. So you can see every website that went to, everything that happened in one place. Now, we also support a DNS component, but I'll get into that in a moment. The DNS also logs into the unified audit. So if you use one of our DNS servers to filter web content for the devices you can't manage, you'll be able to see that in the unified audit as well. So we'll go into here. We can see everything. So you can see what websites I went to. I tried to be politically correct and went to both news sites before going on my demo, so I can see here. And what's actually interesting about what we do is we'll show you what websites you go to, but we'll also show you the tracking parts of it. So we can see here, I went to CNN beforehand, and if I look at my policies, and I'll just open this in a new tab, I've got a policy for news, and that's allowed, but I also have a policy above that that blocks advertising trackers. So CNN here have advertising trackers on their smetrics.cnn, so we're smart enough to block the trackers without blocking CNN. So going to here, that's allowed, but the trackers are denied. Like I said, I don't want to offend anyone politically, so I went to both news sites just so no one gave me too much trouble about which news site I look at, and I don't look at either. It's miserable. So we can see all of the history of the web traffic here in the unified audit within minutes of somebody going to a website, whether they're at home, whether they're in the office, it doesn't matter. Then when we do go to the web control, we have the ability to create policies. Now these policies, I've created a load here and we can auto import them for you. But I've, for example, blocked advertising trackers. I've blocked peer-to-peer. I've blocked gaming. I've blocked project management. I've blocked weapons, LLMs, and AI tools. I've allowed, in this case, entertainment, streaming, news. These are some of the categories we had, education, marketing. But what I've done here is I've actually created this block all policy at the bottom. And the nice thing about this, I've got it in allow at the moment. But if you want to, if you're a school and you want to be really, really strict, I spoke to an education department last week or 2 weeks ago, and they said one of the challenges they have is the kids keep getting these temporary URLs that aren't classified so they can bypass the web security. Middle schoolers are super smart. So what they can do is you can actually go in here and just like our application control, you can say, hey, if it's uncategorized, then
Denied by default.
Denied by default.
Now, that's actually a really good segue into a question we got, which is, are we able to block newly registered domains? Say domains made within the last month. This has been IOC for phishing sites.
Yes, so
Denied by default.
but essentially what ThreatLocker is going to do is we're going to classify every domain that comes in. We're going to look at it, see if it's newly registered, see if it's parked. And you're going to hear me say two words that you'll never hear me say again. Marketing may censor them out afterwards, which is AI and machine learning. We actually built a machine learning module that reviews the sites, compares them to other sites, and is automatically able to categorize them. And if they can't, what's nice about this, or if we have a dispute between various of our models, it goes to a human being to look at and classify that site. So when you go onto a website and we can't classify it, it hasn't been used before, we're going to immediately send it to a human, or if models contradict each other, we're going to send it to a human. And I think this has been really important. I think we removed 6,000 false positives. 6,000 false positives from the explicit content tag just by having humans review misclassifications. And just like most vendors, we're actually bringing open source data in, we're bringing external data in to list and categorize things. But because we're able to cross-reference some of the insights, we're able to actually remove those false positives as well, which is really cool. So we've got here these policies. These policies, if you go into them, they can be for all of the organization. They can be specific groups of computers. If you're using ThreatLocker's DNS servers, which I'll get into in a moment, you can apply them to certain DNS IP addresses. So you can say, hey, from my office, from the US office, you can't connect to these sites. From the Irish office, you can't connect to these sites, and you can specify individual DNS servers. And I'll show you how to configure that in a moment. You can actually list explicit websites in here or categories using our built-in categories. And you can say deny or allow. And you can allow the user to request access as well. So this is a tell the user access is denied, or tell the user, hey, do you want to request? And I'm going to give you an example here. So I'm going to go to a site. I think I'm going to say I've allowed this already. I go to Monday.com. So you see here that Monday.com was blocked. When we go to here, it says Monday was blocked, and it's blocked because it's project management. Now, you may decide I don't want any unauthorized project management in my business. But maybe you use Monday.com, so you say, please, can I use this? And you can send that request. And the couple of things happen when you send this request. Depends if you've got Cyber Hero Management or not. As of Monday, we have full support for our Cyber Hero Management. So if you are subscribed to Cyber Hero Management, it will go to the Cyber Hero Management team, and they will review the category to see if it's wrong. So they're gonna review categories, because if you've said you want to block project management, that's pretty clear instruction. You want to block project management. So it's hard for us to say, hey, we're disputing that and we're allowing it, but we will review it. So if it is a false positive, we're going to allow the project management to run. So if I go to monday.com here, go to my response center, same response center as everything else, I can see that somebody's requested access to monday.com. I can say I won't only want to allow it for this computer or the entire group, and it automatically pre-fills it. I can click approve, and what that does in the background is literally goes in, creates a policy. Again, these run in order, so it's created it above the other policies, and the user gets a nice pop-up say, hey, you're now allowed to run monday.com. So the user experience on this is really, really important and really, really good. So if I go to monday.com again, it now opens that quickly.
Very cool.
Okay. You have any questions, Rob?
I do have a couple of questions. So the one about newly registered domains, again, deny by default pretty much answers that, but also the fact that we are categorizing them. Anonymous user has asked, is a VPN client or a ZTNA on your roadmap?
So yes and no. So the answer is we have a number of development projects ongoing at any point in time, and ZTNA is one of those. Our preference is to work on the basis that ThreatLocker Control does with Microsoft 365, and we're having all sorts of problems with Microsoft's delays, but we're working to resolve
Challenges.
Challenges. The Microsoft delays taking too long to add the IP addresses, but we are working and we are using it fully in-house in ThreatLocker, so when we feel those problems more than anyone else does. But our preference is, rather than routing traffic through somebody else or through us, to actually allow you to directly connect to Microsoft, but ensure, or whoever the network is, only allow you to connect to the resource that you need. So if you're using ThreatLocker Network Control, you can do that right now. But I think with ZTNA is not off the cards, and we have a number of development projects. Our preference is routing traffic through somewhere else is a slow way of doing things. So if there's better ways to do it, we should always approach the better ways first, and that should be the backup.
So we'll classify that as a firm maybe.
Yes.
Mark has asked a few different questions. So he's asking about the categorization and where and how our list of categorized websites come from.
So there's three places. Well, four, I guess. There's data we subscribe to, and we're external data that we subscribe to get categories, and we find that there's extreme amounts of false positives in that, and we do a lot to cross-reference it. We use a machine learning model and automatic scraping of the sites to self-determine. We also look at historic data on the website, how long has it been around, see if we can determine cache from SEO results and things like that, which allow us to determine has it just been switched. So there are three of them, I guess. And the fourth one is humans. It's literally someone's job in ThreatLocker, well, lots of people's job.
Check out the block stuff.
To check out all of the blocks, to research the websites, so literally if you go onto ThreatLocker right now and you're using our web control, the moment you hit a website, if it's not on our database, it immediately goes through our machine learning models, it goes through our research models, and then it will also, if it can't get a definitive answer, it will send it to a human. And a human will look at it and say, this is a site you don't want to look at, or this is a site you do want to look at. And if you're using Cyber Hero approvals, that will automatically go for recategorization whenever you hit request access as well. So you shouldn't even have to approve them if they're wrongly categorized. But
well, that's his second question was he had basically a false positive, so he tried to access something which he should have been able to, but wasn't. So the question is about miscategorization. So how do we deal with that? And you've answered that.
They if you hit request access, it automatically goes into a queue for miscategorization, regardless to whether you use Cyber Hero approvals or not. If you use Cyber Hero approvals, that is processed instantaneously. So from the first of the month, so they will literally get those requests just like they do the other ones, and within minutes they will approve that or decide it's accurately categorized. And I'm sure there's lots of bad data. Just on the data we did, we pulled out 6,000 adult sites. So the nice thing about this is we're constantly evaluating it. And even if you don't have our approval services, when something gets requested, it gets cleaned up. If something gets, we cross-reference it with ThreatLocker Insights data. So if we see a site that's categorized as a gambling site or an adult site, we'll actually go through and we will cross-reference insights and say, why are our customers going to these sites? Are they misclassifications, even if they're not being blocked?
Any favorite categorization so far?
On an external list was Altassassin, the Jira and Confluence.
Presumably because ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
my favorite so far was the Virginia Tax Authority or tax.gov, Virginia or whatever way around it goes. Now, there's a couple of reasons as to why that might have been blocked. One, obviously, could be
Virginia.
Potentially. The other is it could be categorized as a adult content site, because if it's a tax site, somebody's getting... Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't say rude words. It's a webinar. But yeah, you get the idea. Somebody's getting screwed.
Yes, that's true. In Florida, we don't have that problem.
True.
So, yeah, so a couple of interesting ones. And I think that's part of the reason we're constantly evaluating and cross-referencing data. And because we will get, when we're looking at lists of sites and or using automatic metrics to determine something's good or bad, we will get misclassifications. One of the things I don't think I did mention in here was you also have the ability to set users and groups. If you've got Azure integrations or Active Directory integrations, they'll show in here. So that's really cool as well. And you also have the ability, it's not in here yet, there will be an ability to set times of day as well, which will be quite nice. So you can say which times of day these sites can be accessed. I think in my scenario here, I've set allow all, but I could equally set block all. Everything is logged in one central place. The other thing it's probably worth mentioning is the DNS servers. So this is the old school way of web filtering, and it has a purpose. And that purpose is when you don't have an agent on something and you want to protect your public Wi-Fi or you want to protect your phone's Wi-Fi. So in the office here, we have ThreatLocker phones for our employees to connect their phones to. You can actually go in and set up you can put your public IP address in here. And this is how you do this. So beginning to end, you go into here, there's a web control article here which tells you all of the DNS servers you can specify, which is right down the list here. I hope. I'm missing it somewhere. Maybe this isn't the article. Site 1, DNS server, Chrome extensions. Oh, the web extensions I'll go into it as well in a moment. I thought they were in that list, but they should be in that list. So DNS servers that you can use. You can add your servers into here. Once you add them, you redirect your DNS. It will now query your DNS queries through us, and we will return a deny page if it's an HTTP connection. So you'll just get a nice, pretty, this is being blocked. If it's HTTPS, you'll just essentially get cannot connect to server, because we will refuse that connection, because there's no point in giving an SSL error to a user. The other cool thing about the DNS is everything is logged here in the unified audit. And I don't have DNS set up on my test org here, but it looks exactly the same. So you can filter by DNS queries here, and it will show you, I don't have all DNS queries, but if I just filter by regular queries and I look for one of my sites, so I'll say Monday, I can see my denies, my permits in here, and I can see that the DNS looks exactly the same. You have the full details, the source DNS server. Obviously, we can't see users on DNS, but you can get all of the details of the request, and then you can approve it directly from here. So if someone says I'm having problems, you can just search for denies in the unified audit and permit it.
Extensions. Talk about extensions.
Okay, so this is where we really thought about how do we make this streamlined? And here's the challenge. Web extensions can be hacked out, bypassed, and turned off. So the idea of blocking through a web extension was not an option for us. We found too many ways around it, and there's different browsers. So what we did is we decided we're going to block at the kernel, at the driver level in ThreatLocker, like we do with everything else. That way, it doesn't matter. You can't get around it. The next thing we did is we said, well, how do we make the user experience good? So we went off and said, well, we can use web extensions for that. So if I was to go into, and as soon as you deploy the ThreatLocker agent, it's going to put it into Chrome and Edge. We're working on other ones. You can technically add any Chromium-based extension yourself. But if I go to a website, and I use Chrome just because I want to keep the two browsers separate. If I go to like bet365.com, the deny immediately happens at the kernel. So you'll see that really, really quick. If you saw it very quickly, it flashed up, access is denied. What we did is we built now the problem is a Chrome extension cannot see the user that's logged into the operating system. So nobody knows whether the user is Bob or Danny or Rob. It doesn't really matter. You can't see it as a Chrome extension. So if I just did this request from a Chrome extension, that would be very inefficient. So essentially what we're doing is when I request this here, it's actually using a token that's been generated by the agent, and it's able to match it to the user. So when I request Bet365, we can see in the response center who the user is, which was pretty challenging to actually get that part working. But it also gives the user a seamless experience. Now, if the user does manage to hack the Chrome extension out, or let's just say I'm going to go into incognito. Do I have the Chrome extension on? And we've said we've used the registry key, so users shouldn't be able to remove it, but it's not impossible. But if I was to go into Bet365,
All they would get really from removing the Chrome extension is a worse user experience. It's not like they're going to get around the blocks.
we're just going to get your internet access is blocked. So I think we've got the extensions, which gives the seamless user experience. All of this is still logged in the unified audit, but we've also got the easy approval process.
Just to confirm, other browsers, what if I use Brave?
It doesn't really matter what you use, so it's going to block it regardless. If you don't have the extension, it's not going to give you the seamless experience. Brave is based on Chromonian, so you can add the extension at any point. As we find browsers, we're checking it off in the agent to automatically add the extension into them to give the user the best experience, but certainly the most popular ones we have by default.
What if I try to go to a adult content site in PowerShell? I don't know why one would want to, but
PowerShell's going to be ring fenced by default, so it's not going to go out to the instance. So, but if you wanted to, PowerShell does have a video.
I did a call quite some time ago with a correctional facility, I believe they're called, a jail, and they were particularly interested in ring fencing Office. And when I actually spoke to them about it, tried to figure out why, they had basically said, well, look, we don't have any browsers on the computers that the inmates are allowed to use, but what they do have is Office. And the inmates had found a way to access adult content websites, which was through the clip art feature in Office. They used the clip art feature to browse and basically be able to look at inappropriate sites.
That is...
Now, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, they deserve that adult content. I mean, that's serious time and effort went into that, but I suppose time and effort is pretty much all they have.
So,
but yeah, anyway, the point is this would block that too.
Absolutely. So
Yes.
this
So
is
it doesn't
I
matter
mean,
if I'm
this is essentially
using
using the
clip
network control component of ThreatLocker. And of course, one of the nice things about ring fencing as well is we're doing that for a security purpose, not just a web filtering purpose. But this is going to look at all of the domains and all of the categories. And like I said, I think the most important things for us here is giving effective web blocking with low false positive rates and a seamless user experience. And that's really what we've done. So there are very, very high level of control for the admin. So as an admin, you can set, and I mentioned DNS servers. So if I set DNS servers up here, you see I've got two servers here. I've got test server and ThreatLocker DNS server. They're just names I've given it. I could say block AI for DNS server, test server. And I can go in here and I could just choose to apply this to that server. And then when I click deny, categories, click add. Now, if I come from that DNS server, that website can't be used.
So there is an important point around this, which is you can have, by using the DNS servers as well, you can have a different set of policies for your computers and your phones. So you could block social media on computers, for argument's sake, but you could allow them on phones.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, one thing to know is this could end up double filtering if you're not careful. So you should have a separate DNS server for your protected devices, for your phones, to your non. Otherwise,
but you can apply the same policies or different policies to both types of thing, whether it be agent-based or DNS-based.
Because it can be blocked at the DNS level, and then it can be blocked at the agent level as well. So just be careful with that.
Cool.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Do we have any final questions?
I don't think we have any final questions. We are over time. I just want to point that out, and I've not been in control of the Q&A, so I haven't asked a million questions. So that's 100% your fault.
Okay. Well,
but
we
yes,
have. So if you haven't tested this out, you can go into the portal now. You can turn it on. Make sure you do talk to your account manager if you're an existing customer, because we have special deals on Web Control. I think they expire at the end of the month. But if you turn it on, you'll just get billed retail price, and it will just bill you. But you can go
do that. Talk to your account manager.
Yeah. So just reach out to your account manager. Send an email to them. But if you go into the portal here, you can turn on Web Control right here, and then it will be accessible here.
You the agent policies.
Make sure the agent's up to date. So you should be running at least version 10. That is available. It's not in beta. 10.01 and 10.02 should be available too, but that's going to make a bigger difference on the patch management.
And just again, the extensions will get installed automatically once you're on the appropriate version and you have that module turned on.
Yes, everything will be installed automatically. Policies will download. It's very, very effective. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to your account manager, reach out to support. We do have some special deals until the end of the month for existing customers. So if you are interested,
5 days, people. So
5 days, well, probably 3 because it's the weekend.
True.
So reach out to your account manager. They can turn it on, and they can even set trials so you won't be billed for it while it's on. We have a number of categories. These are some of the examples. Interesting pets and animals who decided on that category, but so somebody did weapons, elements.
Interesting pets and animals, or pets and animals.
It says pets / animals.
No, that's fine. So I thought it was only interesting pets or animals.
Yes. Okay.
Who decides what's interesting?
These
are the questions,
and these do run in order. So quite often you'll get conflicts. So you'll have something that says, "Hey, this is a social media site, but it's also explicit content site," or maybe there's I don't know, what's an explicit social media? OnlyFans might be considered.
I was going to say no.
So
I won't make any potentially politically charged jokes.
So we will. They'll run in order, and they'll if you have a deny on social media, and then you have another allow, you can switch them around as well, which is pretty cool.
And needless to say, it's the same agent that are installed, broadly speaking, on machines already. It's the same portal you're familiar with. It's the same hierarchy, structure. Everything else works like pretty much everything else we do. So if you're familiar with the rest of it, you're going to be pretty familiar with this. And
from the 1st of the month, if you've got Cyber Hero approval, you can send the request in. You can put any additional notes in if you want for web control. Outside of that, they're going to verify that the category is correct, and they will approve it. And they're picking them up. The average pickup is about within 3 minutes. Web filtering is a little bit quicker than testing an application, so they can make decisions a lot faster as well. So if you want to test that out, you can. We do have another webinar at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes, we do.
This afternoon. Rob's going to run this one, and it's the patch management.
The less fun one.
The less fun
I have to say.
I don't know. I will tell you something that freaked me out. ThreatLocker internally has a third-party patch management system, or had a third-party patch management system. And we deployed the patch management, and everything in the third-party system said checkbox green and everything else. And as soon as I went into the health center, I said, why do we have 450 endpoints with out-of-date applications? And I was amazed how much was missed. And you're going to see some really cool stuff, because we literally tore up the book on how to monitor for unpatched software. And it was amazing what we saw, but it was also terrifying. My blood was boiling, and I was tearing apart our infrastructure department, our IT department, saying, why do our laptops have unpatched software? And the third-party patch management said everything was patched, and they weren't taking into account out-of-date patches on Zoom that were running portable. They weren't taking out-of-date patches. So Zoom was one of the big ones that even 7-zip Notepad++. So there was stuff that we found that made my blood boil. So if you are using ThreatLocker now, you have to be running it again. The best on 10.02 for this, but I think 10 and 10.0 will report. There are changes in 10.02 for patch management, but if you go into the missing updates in your health center and just see what that number says, you don't have to have patch management turned on to see that. Rob's going to go through more detail on this later on this afternoon. It will scare you. But okay, well, thank you, Rob.
Fantastic. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you for joining us today, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you at 2 p.m. or 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Eastern
time, which I know is like 6 p.m. UK. So
no, 5 at the moment.
Oh, no, the clocks went back. I don't know.
They didn't.
We'll see. Some point in the UK.
5 p.m. Irish time.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.